Hey everybody, and welcome to episode 86 of the Bonehead Podcast, where we talk all things Blood Bowl. Welcome back. I'm Ben, and today I am joined by our 3D printing correspondent, who is also 3D, I'm led to believe, Ian Triple Pow Triplo. Ian, how you doing today?
I'm all good, Ben. Yourself?
Yeah, not bad, Trips. Thank you so much for joining us today. Blunt Tithe has moved house and is in the progress of just rebuilding his life, technically. Um,
Everything.
yeah, starting with the 3D printers, so we've seen, which I think is only fair. So Trips, thank you very much. So Trips is jumping in today, and we've got quite a lot to talk about. Not kind of as a weird one, like no big things, just lots of little things, and a couple of things that are gonna be big things. We're gonna cover the Almanac. We're gonna cover the big news that came out last weekend for Blood Bowl, and we're also going to talk about the ITC in 40k and what that means for Blood Bowl. Okay, so let's start with news, and we've basically got some Blood Bowl news here that is Blood Bowl but isn't really Blood Bowl, and this is Blitz Bowl Trips. Have you come across this in your hobby time?
So, seen quite a lot about it, but obviously we've never been able to play it because it's been UK embargoed forever and a day.
Yeah, really strange one. Now, this article doesn't say anything about these ones being embargoed, but there was no confirmation that it wasn't. And on the Warhammer community Facebook thing, a bunch of people have asked, and they were like, we'll let you know where it's going to be available. So this is looking like I got really excited because I was like, we've got Blitz Bowl. This is cool. This is a great little mini game. What a great way to get people into Blood Bowl. Maybe, maybe not. Anyway, Blitz Bowl Ultimate Edition was announced this week. And it is smaller in scale but no less bloody. The six-a-side version of Blood Bowl gets a new season, bringing you more glory, gladiatorial action on the gridiron. With streamlined rules that are simple to learn but rewarding to master, you can get into the game at a breakneck pace, quite literally, for some players. This season, 2 new teams are ready to tussle in a tumultuous tryout. 6 human players form the Reavers, while 6 Skaven make up the Scramblers. You'll also get a pitch, cards, dice, and everything else you need to play an action-packed strategic sports game for 2 in less than an hour. I mean, just play 7s, really. But so yeah, they're releasing another game, another Blitz Bowl game, and this one's got a human roster and a Skaven roster, blue humans, brown Skaven, and all the cards to go with it. I just, it's a weird one that they bring out this game and then don't sell it to what has to be one of the primary customer bases,
It,
which is
it's really weird. You would have thought there's no licensing issue with it, but maybe they're a bit afraid with saturating the market with multiple versions.
I don't know if Games Workshop have ever been worried about saturating a market. Certainly not with rule books. Anyway, yeah, it's weird. I mean, if I had this is, I've got a copy of Blitzball. I got it from Ben Davey previously of the Maximal Fire Adeptus Titanicus podcast. I've not played it, but I thought it might because it's not. There's a lot of stuff in Blood Bowl that is what I would say is kind of like floating variables. You've got to you've got to memorize some stats, you've got to know your numbers, you've got to do a little bit of maths. Nothing difficult to overcome if you're committed, but if you are casual or just a glancing blow of a trying out of a game, it can be a barrier. If you're a war gamer, you're used to that stuff. If you're a board gamer, you're not. And Blitz Bowl, I thought would have been a great opportunity to get Tiff to play. I mean, to get Tiff to play 7s, I had to take her to Tenerife. COVID has quite disrupted my ability to bribe my wife with travel to get her to play more Blood Bowl. But
Get a teaser with a 6-a-side, not a 7-a-side.
well, it's just because everything's on the cards, everything's ready to go, and you've got the additional victory points things, and Tiff is really, she likes the board games now. So we absolutely smashed Hogwarts Battle and stuff like that. So she loves that stuff. But having the what's the rules for this guy? Well, here's a bit of scrap paper with it written on, and this guy's got it. It does create a barrier to what I'd say would be casual board gamers, and Blitzball was a great kind of intermediary. But I guess we'll never really know. Uh, there's a couple of people who prefer Blitzball to Blood Bowl. I mean, personally, sevens is just excellent. But I was hoping this would be a really good way to be like a just a sneaky way to get people into it.
That's the thing. If they do release it and it comes out, anyone who plays it, well, if you like it, there's more. Yeah, there's more rules, but yeah, you like it, there's more.
Yeah, that's it. It's like, hey, it's like Blitzball, but actually there's one more player. The pitch is bigger, and it's actually Blood Bowl. But yeah, so Blitzball, Vinspalled, and pretty cool. There's a couple of other bits. There's like a little Warhammer Quest game that they've released. This is their mini game sort of series that they kind of drop and no one ever sees except on Amazon with a massive import fee. So yes, maybe we'll get a bit of Blitzball, but I'm pretty sure this is going to be US and Germany was the last one, wasn't it?
Yeah. So for all those dice hunters out there still trying to complete your set with the Blitzball ones, you might need a friend in a foreign country.
Exactly, which is not ideal. Now, the next bit of news, we've got a little video to show you because Charlie Victor has teased a new product. So let's put the video in right now. Okay, so it's a pretty cool video. Now, we've done a lot of unbox and reviews for Charlie Victor stuff, and the quality is, I think I've always described it as unnecessarily good because this, and I think it is, because it is premium stuff. And this carry case, you can get your pitch, you can get, 26 models in it, your books, your dice, your gear. It looks to be perfect for basically all Blood Bowl players. If you're headed to a tournament, if you're headed to a league, having this. Now, Trips, you and I have talked about this before because I am not necessarily disorganized, but just chaotic in a way that is just stressful. So when it comes to me going out the house to do something, I either leave it in the car, so I could run a Blood Bowl tournament based on what is just in the boot of my car now because, well, we went to Bombember and then yeah, I never bothered taking it out. I don't use the car, so hey, it's all in there. So basically ready for beachhead. But when it comes to playing a league game or something, you're like, right, where's my team? Let's get the team prep. Let's get it. You've got a different strategy for that, haven't you?
Yeah, I like the carry cases. I like having something boxed up. I think part of that's having lots of teams. So I don't want to carry them all around with me all the time. I want to carry the one I'm playing around with me. And I like to be able to go to a tournament and know I've got everything.
That's very solid. So up until now, I've got the tabletop tyrant cases, which are pretty good. You can't fit pitch in there. If you put your dice in there, you're taking out your model space, and I don't know. I just end up with a stack of them just with models I'll never use or find again because I think half of them are now in storage. But something like this, I think, is going to be really cool. And Duncan said he's going to try and hook us up with one of the preview copies so that actually we can show it off. Because I will be ordering this myself because this is going to be really helpful for traveling tournaments. I kind of use my laptop case at the moment, just with foam trays, and I mean, it works, but it's certainly not great. But you know,
Yeah. I mean, there's so many different versions out there. I mean, you can get inserts for the box. You can get, I use the KR multi-case set, or there's a lot of D&D bags, which will be really good if you want to pack a bit more in. because they're designed for the big books as well.
Oh, that's quite a clever idea. Anyway, you can see in the video that there's plenty of little pouches for the books and things like that. So it's looking like it's really cool. And I love the way you got these secure straps for the pitch as well. I am very excited to find out more about this. Charlie Victor product quality is always excellent. That does mean that they tend to have a price tag that is substantial. It's never like Games Workshop. It's never expensive to the point of a Forge World style player, but it is, you pay for what you get. And the great thing is Charlie Victor actually backs that up every single time with getting something that is going to outlast you, which is a scary prospect. But no, love that. Looking forward to seeing more about that. Okay, next up we've got Fanath Trips. I forgot this one and just chucked it back into the show notes there. The Fanath. All right, I love Fanath. Fanath are a European company that makes models that have a second edition glamour to them. The dwarf team. Is it my favourite dwarf team? I think it is my favourite dwarf team. But the Grebo one is pretty good. Okay, Grebo Chorfs over Fanath Dwarfs, but pure dwarfs, Fanath is the best. Anyway, and the frog team as well is pretty wicked. But they have now spoiled and went straight for the pre-order a high elf team. So this is a really interesting one. So there's two different levels to buy in. The classic elf full team is €45 on sale at the moment. This team is in the manufacturing process, and we estimate that it'll begin to be delivered on February 25th, which is 3 weeks. And as compensation during the pre-order, the price will be lowered. It's going to go up to €55 after this. Now, what does it contain? Do they have a breakdown on this page? They don't have a breakdown on this page, so we're going to have to do it the old Mark 1 eyeball, most famously known for Battlestar Galactica. So it's a high elf set with 12 models in it. Is it 12 models or is it the full set?
Like 12.
The full team is 16, which is cool. So we have definitely got 2 throwers, 2 blitzers, and then you've got at least 2 catchers there. And I think there's a 3rd and 4th catcher there as well. So it looks like 4 catchers, 2 blitzers, 2 throwers, and then 8 line elves to go with it, which is basically going to cover you for most sort of different correlations. Now, I predicted high elves. I think Ben and I both agreed that high elves were likely to be the next team that came out from Games Workshop. We were wrong, and we are going to talk about that in detail in a little bit. So the landing of a high elf team is excellent. Trips, what do you reckon to the team?
So it's great to have a non-dwarf team, and it's for all the elf players out there. It's great to have another elf team on the market because it is a really short team to find. I think it's nice that you've got both a male and female elves in the set.
Yeah.
Not really nice miniatures to look at. There's one thing I just don't like, and it's there's a couple of raised foot miniatures which have got a support to the base underneath them. I can see everybody clipping that off.
That's old school. That's like the old Games Workshops when it was Marauder miniatures and like the metal goblins and things with that 1 foot off the ground. You'd always have that little bit that I kind of assumed was always like a casting funnel.
Yeah.
Man, 3D printing has really taken over. I can't think of what the appropriate term for that. I don't know. We always cut it off as flash, but yeah, I mean, I'm going to call it a support for casting. Man, we have come so far technologically, haven't we? That is funny. I mean, I've got the 2 blitzers up on the screen here. They've got the very cool Calador dragon helmets. They've got the classic high elf armor. You've got scale mail with breastplate, shoulder pad. It looks perfectly 4th, 5th, 6th edition Warhammer. These are high elves. You look at them and you're like, hey, Games Workshop's going to sue you. Level of high elf.
It's a nice level of detail without being too much tiny detail to make it impossible to paint. So I think they'll paint up quickly really nicely, and also you can do some really nice things with them if you want to put a bit more time and effort into them.
Yeah, and all the Fanath models I've got at the Frogs team is just so great. They're so characterful because they've got that kind of I like I said, second edition charm. It's because they've got I think you've called it there actually. The kind of the stylized way that they do these models. They kind of paint themselves, but you're right. If you want to do non-metallic metal, if you want to do a bit of gem glimmer or fancy flesh tones, they've got all the detail there for it. And Fanath have done a great job here by actually including a size comparison to a human thrower, and the elves are taller, but doesn't look like they are significantly taller to the point where they're going to look ridiculous. So actually, excellent. Happy with the scale. Really looking forward to getting our hands on this because currently, if you want a good high elf team, there's the Wire one, which is very stylized because it's super true scale, which is cool, but super true scale. Or you kind of have to convert the Elven Union team. Otherwise, I don't think there isn't a high elf team that kind of leads the pack. When it comes to Chaos Dwarves, Grebo Chaos Dwarf team now leads the pack. When you think of where do I get a Norse team from? Don't know yet. Where do I get a high elf team from? I really don't know. You have to make your own. Part of that is charming, but now Fanath for €45 or €55 when it goes to full price, or €65 actually for the 16 players. 60 quid for 16 players. That's Kickstarter pricey, isn't it?
Yeah. And it's worth pointing out that pre-order sales price is only till Monday the 7th. So if you want to jump in it, do it quickly.
Yeah, you've got a few days, and that is it basically as this podcast comes out. Anyway, it's cool to see Fanath doing stuff. What do you think to the way they're doing a pre-order instead of doing the Kickstarter, Ian?
I think they've proved that they can really just crack on and do it. I don't know what Kickstarter take as a cut or the detail, but I guess this just puts them in direct control of it, everything themselves.
Yeah, I mean, Ben and I talked about this a few episodes ago because we talked about like the model that Punga have taken when it comes to their Kickstarter. Grebo feel like they do one every 3 months, which is really cool because you get a quarterly kind of, oh, it's a project, oh, there's some excitement. Like, that's pretty sweet. Whereas Punga are just like, once a year, they're like, you know what? We haven't done a Kickstarter for a while. Let's do 6 teams in one go. And I feel like there's a bit of a, this is probably my retail training coming in here, but I feel like there's a bit of, you called it already, saturation. Like, if you release £300 worth of product, people are going to spend up to what they've got spare. So, you produce 6 teams, they're going to buy 2, or they're going to blood tithe Bennett and buy all of them. But the people who would buy 6 across the year will probably only buy 2 or 3 that they can afford, and then they will never go back and buy the others. But if you do a Kickstarter every 3 months, it's cool. A new team, I'll get that. It's only €45 when it's on sale, so it's an interesting one because they've got Punga doing that model of heavy on Kickstarter versus Fanath, who are just like, yeah, we just want to sell our product. I mean,
what you want though is you just hope that there's enough stock that for those who want to go back in 3 months' time, it's still on the website and you can still order it. It's also worth noting, just looking on the website, there is a basic team version as well, so a 12-player version that's also up for pre-order and sale now. So yeah, if you don't want a full team and you just want 12, €35.
€35 for that. That's excellent. And that's got 2 blitzers, 2 throwers, 2 catchers with the lion plates, and 6 linemen. I mean, €35 is, well, I mean, that's £32 really, isn't it? So that's what, £6 more than a Games Workshop box team. Plastic resin as well. So that's good. I mean, there's a lot of people out there who hate metal. I love metal models, but they are right. The paint does not stick to them very well. And these guys all look like they're single casts, don't they, as well?
They look really nice. So yeah, I think if you're in the market for an elf team, you're not going to go wrong if you want to pick these guys up.
The only thing I would love to see about this is the ability to get extra players. As great as high elves are performing at the moment, it would be really lovely to have the option to have 4 blitzers, so you could run them as a dark elf team as well. And there's in fact, it was on Whip Wednesday this week. Chap managed to get his hands on 2 of the classic high elf teams And I was like, this is great. You know, you've got 4 blitzers. You can run them as dark elves if you don't fancy floating them out as high elves. And Fanath will, I'm sure, eventually open them up. But it just would have been nice to be like, hey, here's a full team. Here's a really full team with 2 extra blitzers, so you can run it for dark elves as well. So if you are out there, companies, players and coaches for Blood Bowl will want more. So if you're thinking, whew, put this out for 16 players, you can sell us 20. You just have to be clever about it.
And we all know that you always need more because 2 league games in, you're going to need that third journeyman all of a sudden.
Yeah, you could never get enough elf linemen. No, brilliant. Like that from Fanath. We've got a couple of Kickstarter bits now as well. There's one from Hungry Troll, I believe, which is the Wastelanders, which is an interesting one here.
Mm.
So let's have a look at the price point first. So £17, early Wastelanders, include all the STL files in the Kickstarter. Otherwise, it goes down to £21 for the same thing. Pre-supported and Chitu box available and be delivered on March 2022. Okay, so the Wastelanders here. What team is this supposed to be? Or have they got basically a good mix? Let's have a look.
It looks like it's a Snotling team, a Skaven team. So it's probably an underworld. There's quite a lot of bits and pieces. You can get wagons.
Yeah, we got war wagons, little snotlings, motorheads, which are your pogo stick dudes. You've got hoopers, which are squig riders. There's that troll. Have you seen the troll trips?
That troll, that's a customizable piece if ever there is one.
Oh, and the Ratmen have got it as well. So I'm getting excited because we've got the troll here with 7 or 8 different mutated arms, and it looks like they also fit on the rat ogres as well, which is pretty great. So when you're coming to do mutations and conversions, you get that. And we've got some stretch goals for them here. So here's a gallery of the models. So you've got war wagons, which are... That's amazing. That's a mutated ogre on a tricycle, isn't it?
It's pretty special, that.
With some little snotlings with stick grenades on the back. That's a very straight... It's like a Mad Max kind of snotling team. That's definitely Mad Max, isn't it?
That does look like something that you could scale up and make a lovely diorama out of.
That's very true. The motorheads are literally bouncing around on a motor. You've got the squig dudes, which are pretty cool too. So, yeah, and the troll with the different mutations is very cool. And you get a rat ogre again with slot for mutations, which is pretty good too. And you get a ratman blitzer with slots. That boy looks like a rat ogre level. You get throwers as well. So this is a very strange mix. So we've got line rats, got thrower, we've got runner, merchant. So this is this snotlings or is this underworld?
It's very vague.
Yeah,
It's probably vague, and it's STLs as well. So
I mean it's a cool way to get some STLs.
Yeah.
These rat men look a lot like beastmen as well. So okay, so there's two different line rats. You get one gutter runner, one thrower, one blitzer, and
With different mutations. One rat ogre with mutations.
A troll
with mutations.
No goblins anywhere?
No, it's just the snotlings.
Interesting.
But
they've got stretch goals.
Stretch goals, yeah.
Okay, so 3,000 is an ogre star player, 4,000 is a surprise big guy, 6,000 is 4 mutated goblins. And there's magnet holes for the mutation bits. Interesting one. It's a pretty good way to... It's a pretty interesting way to do this. You can therefore run this as a snotling team. Snotling team and as an underworld team then. Which is...
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. All right, that's definitely one to look at if you've got a 3D printer. Size-wise and model-wise, they look good. Pre-supports look pretty decent. Big fan of pre-supported stuff, even if I was let down this week. And I did have a fail on a pre-supported piece that just felt utterly robbed by it. I was like, well, I could have made this mess myself. Anyway, forgot to look at how that one was doing actually. £759 against an £833 goal. So with 14 days to go, that will definitely meet the target, which means there's going to be some pretty cool Underworld STLs kicking around.
Yeah, it's going to hit its target. I think its stretch might be a bit of a stretch.
Yeah, what was it? £6,000 for the goblins?
Yeah, 3, 4, and 6 grand.
Yeah.
So yeah.
It's a bit of a shame that one, but we'll see. You never know. The next one we've got Crazy Girls. Now this is from Cedric Snow Model, and he's been doing some great sculpts kicking around. So this is basically an Amazon team, £1,380 against a target of 166. Now this is more STLs, isn't it? What do we got? Warrior Clan included 14 STLs. £19. Basic team, £21. 7 linewomen, 2 throwers, 2 catchers, 4 blitzers. And £26 is the same, including all the stretch goals. And for £38, you can get the commercial license, which is actually pretty low, isn't it? So let's scoot down here and have a look at the team. So line women, I mean, they do fall a little bit into the barbarian woman trap or trope.
Yeah,
the trope trap.
Definitely a team that if you like painting skin, then you're going to have plenty of opportunities with this team.
Yeah. They're quite tall looking. I've got to say, though, the blitzers with the skull faces that looks like a Warcry warband at that point.
Yeah, they look very usable for other things.
And the cool thing is that there's square-based armed versions. So if you wanted to play, I don't know, use Amazons in Warhammer or something like that, you've got fantasy combat versions, which is actually pretty cool with some classically sized weapons. There's those blitzers again. Blitzers are very cool models. There's a couple of stretch goals, extra line women. There's a big guy model, which is a pretty cool guy. You've got tokens, cheerleaders. I like that they've included the test prints in these, and they've come out really, really well.
They've come out really well.
The blitzer heads are really cool. Yeah, interesting one. Oh yeah, that's it. The Crazy Frogs team, which I actually really enjoyed. Cedric does some really good stuff. Really good stuff. Cool. That is a interesting one. When's this one going on for? When does it finish? It finishes in 17 days, so you've got a couple of weeks. Monday, 21st of February for the Crazy Girls Kickstarter. And a couple of bits more. Brute Fun, who we featured a couple of times on the show, has now got a mini factory, and my mini factory page as well. The Lizardman team has been fully released with all the gubbins, and there is an additional model that he has provided us as well that I think is already on there for the my mini factory. But we will talk about that at Beachhead because it's going to be some of the prizes, so that's pretty cool. Which I think, Trips, means the next bit of news is not Blood Bowl related, but I wanted to talk about it anyway because big fans of Warcry here on the show, and I know that you are a big fan of Warcry as well, Trips. And I thought this was clever. So Underworlds is not Warcry. Underworlds is a warband board game. You got a box of dudes. There can be 3 or 4 dudes up to like 9 dudes, depending on the type of the
8 or 9, depending on which gang you get.
And we've seen there's some cool, like the vampires. We saw them. We got excited because we thought a vampire team was coming. Games Workshop has said that in Warcry, they are going to use these warbands and they are going to put model rules for them so that you can use your Underworld warband in Warcry, which I think makes Warcry infinitely more accessible.
I love the phrase, it's an extra 32 warbands worth of choices. That's just like, it's a lot in one go.
Massive, but you can also take the guys individually. So depending on what you've got. So this is not just star players, but that's basically what it is. It's 32 teams of star players is being added into Warcry. Now Warcry is a fast, chilled skirmish game. Really good. We played a good few games of it at club, but it's just really enjoyable. The ability to take a warband that has a lot of character and a lot of style, and you can add a couple of guys to it and run it now in Warcry is brilliant, and I love to see it. It is basically star players being added to Warcry, and it's really big. And I think once we get through Beachhead, we should definitely get some Warcry games in, because this is a really cool little game. It's a nice way to get your fantasy skirmish on the go. And if you like the Blood Bowl size of game, so 7s to 11s, where you've got that amount of dudes, it's a really fun little game to play as well.
And it's about the length of just over about a sevens game when you really rattle
Yeah.
through it. It's we got 2 games in a club night, and that was with us all
Learning the
referring to the
rules
rule
for the
book.
first time. Yeah, no, it's excellent. But now it just means there's more choice, and the choice is about the same price as a Blood Bowl team to get into. So I thought it was worth talking about, because I just do love a
It's
little
great.
bit.
It's great to see the integration across the games, because most of us have got more than one Games Workshop box very close to us, so the ability to start mixing and matching games is I think it's changed a few to do hobby lists today.
Oh, massively, including mine, because actually now you've got a nice little hobby project to get on the go. Yeah, really impressed with this. Really impressed indeed. And before we move on, there is one other thing to say. I just want to say a massive thank you to everybody who supports us on the channel by subscribing. We just hit 10,000 subs on YouTube, which is very exciting. And a massive thank you to everybody who supports us on Patreon. So a massive thank you to everyone who supports us, and those Patreons who've joined us this week: Chris Tweddle, David Ankers, David Fitcher, Michael Bullman, Sven Lemcool, Rice33, and everybody else who are supporting the show. It's awesome. Thank you so much, and we genuinely couldn't do what we do without you guys. So a massive thank you. And now let's ramble on about hobby. And we're back, and it is hobby time. And Trips, I'm just gonna go straight into it, because I have not done a huge amount of hobby. It's been a busy couple of weeks. The kind of projects just starting off because the end of the financial year has happened. So it's been, doing stuff. But I have been able to do some 3D printing in the background, and I have been led astray by friends of the show, Rick and Craig, into epic 40,000 but Adeptus Titanicus scale, and it is just unnecessary fun. It's so good. I've got a little picture on the background here of a few bases of infantry and of a few tanks, and it's just made me so happy. Trips.
The glee that you have been sharing those pictures with the rest of us, and the ever increasing black hole of bringing everyone else into it is working beautifully.
You did a great job of resisting, I have to say. For now, I will get you.
Got my hobby rules and trying to stick to them.
But no, I mean, obviously I've not done any painting when it comes to these guys, but I have printed some stuff off, and Rick has already started painting his. He's painting them as pre-heresy. Basically what we're going to do is we are making pre-heresy armies at Adeptus Titanicus scale, just so we can play a game of Epic 40,000. And we're all kind of gonna go and have a go at printing and painting a 2,500 point army. I'm going to be doing a chapter, haven't quite decided what yet. Craig's going to be doing the Golden Boys, the Adeptus Custodes. Rick is almost finished painting his Dark Angels. And Ben is talking about doing World Eaters, but I think he might just be building his garage for a while with that one, I reckon. So yeah, in Hobbyland, that has been basically my driver. How about you?
So I had the January drive to can I build what I got for Christmas. So got some Warcry Chaotic Beasts in the Formoroid. So finally got the desk back together last week. Got them assembled and primed, so that counts as painted. And
It does on
working my
this
way
show.
through the Kill Team miniatures now. And just today got the 3D printer back and powered back in again. So now working on a slightly different hobby project to use on the desk.
No, I mean, your hobby space optimization has been awesome to watch. I think that's, kind of inspired Ben and his new house to get his hobby space all set up properly and everything. And yeah, I mean, the death core of Krieg guys you've got for Kill Team, they're really great models. They're really fun models.
They are really nice. I'm just about to get to that stage when I go, right, I've got 15 spades. Where am I going to stick them?
There you go. Save them for some kind of underkeeper Blood Bowl team. Um,
Yeah.
yeah. Oh, that's wicked. I mean, yeah, this Warcry thing is pretty exciting. But I mean, the biggest focus right now has got to be on Beachhead, which is coming up in 6 days. So, well, it's not 6 days. It's just over a week, isn't it? So when this podcast comes out,
A week.
it's a week to go. Now, as this podcast comes out on that Saturday, there are still tickets available. Pete's made sure there's still a few tickets available. So if you have missed out or you've gone, oh my goodness, I'm now free or anything like that, please, you can pick up a ticket, but get your rosters into us straight away. I've been checking them off this week. I've got the full attendee list from Entoyment last night. So on Saturday, that'll go up on our website with have a had your roster, have a not had your roster. And then the final week of Panic roster checking goes in. Basically, the earlier we get the rosters, the easier it's going to be on the morning of the tournament, and we're on the way to 100 players on the Saturday now. So it's the more time you save, the more time it saves for all of us on the day, which is pretty cool because the quicker it goes, the more time you got to mooch around the show, and that's kind of
The quicker you get it done, the more time you can go and browse what you're going to go and buy at lunchtime.
It's a full-on games convention. There's going to be thousands of people there, loads of traders, loads of games. It's looking like it's going to be absolutely awesome fun. We got a couple of boxes. I think most of the prizes have turned up now. There's a bunch of stuff coming back to Entoyment as well. We've got half the dice. We've got some other of goodies for the event coming. And I'm picking up the trophies, I think, on Monday or Tuesday next week. Had to spend hundreds of pounds on trophies, but they're proper trophies, engraved, shinies, and everything. It's gonna be awesome. And the other thing I need to do is order the leaflets for the Dorset Dungeon Bowl, actually, so I can give them to all the competitors. Because we'll get Beachhead done and dusted, and then 4 months later, 3 months later, it's going to be Dungeon Bowl at Entoyment, which is also going to be awesome. Still waiting to hear back from the NAF on what their rules are for sanctioning regular teams at a Dungeon Bowl event. That's why we haven't put the rules out yet. It's because I'm not sure if we're allowed to. That's not fair. I'm not sure if we're going to be able to be NAF sanctioned for the Dungeon Bowl event because it will be normal teams. You will be able to take normal teams. No star players, but you will be able to take normal teams because I just think it's too... You're just going to... I don't want to alienate people. And let's face it, Trips, we've looked at the Dungeon Bowl teams. If you're going to start scratch with a Dungeon Bowl team, it's not easy, is it?
No, you're talking multiple boxes. I mean, for those of us who are lucky enough to have the access to the printers, it's easier to fill out a team with third-party bits and pieces. But yeah, I think, and we've seen it before with mixed team tournaments.
Yeah.
There's no overpowered teams if you just take a normal team. It's just a different challenge on the day.
Yeah, it works better, and that's it. That's what we want. The maps are set. Thanks to you helping me figure out the right way to do it for the day. We'll have the maps all sorted, all organized. One of them is built and test printed, and we'll get the second one done probably. Actually, I've already designed it. Just need to make it fancy and get our print test for it, which is very exciting. Yeah, it's going to be a good year for Blood Bowl. Already can feel it. Now, we talked some news stuff. There's a couple of bits we skipped out because we want to go into it a little bit later. But, I mean, Trips, have you played any games of Blood Bowl recently?
Well, I played a game of Blood Bowl. And played is probably a stretch. I rolled a few dice in it, and I'm just about getting over the shakes from that game that we played for the channel.
Yeah, we played. Was it the last regular season game and the dice
last regular season game and went in style.
Oh yeah, I mean it was dramatic, but there was definitely some dicing. I've loved to see all the comments that are just like respects to you, because there are it's a really fun game to watch. There's a couple of really great things to see in it. Um, but the biggest one, and I love that people have picked up on this, is they've picked up on the fact that you were fighting against the dice in a lot of situations, but you stuck to the plan, and it was excellent. It was a proper lesson in actually play to my outs. Let's stick with the strategy. I just need to roll a single 3 and it will be okay. And it turns out that, well, watch the video. Um,
Yeah, my highlight was watching you predict the future and then yeah, having to suffer the fate as you predicted the future.
oh yeah, I know. So watch a lot of NFL, and you kind of get the commentator's lead on like this guy's not missed a field goal all season. Just you set up the big moments, and yeah, that was I felt like I felt horrible at that point. I was like, this is terrible, absolutely terrible. But it was a good game. It's always a good fun game. And thank you very much for
Absolutely.
jumping on. Now, let's talk NFL real quickly. The Packers got gone to the 49ers, which I believe you were feeling quite good about, Trips.
I was yeah, as a 49ers fan, I was pleasantly surprised to see that result. Uh, and yeah, the Packers just got bashed,
Yeah,
bashed all over the place by the 49ers.
the Packers got diced in that game. But then the 49ers got gonned as well by the Rams, which is a pretty cool story. So the Super Bowl this year will be the Bengals and the Rams. Now the Rams have been good for a couple of years. They've got a mostly good team, mostly good coach. Now they brought in a quarterback from a garbage team with a great arm, and now they're playing really well. And then the Bengals, they've got a star thrower who came back from a horrid injury last year, and they've been really fun, really spiky. And now we've got this Super Bowl that I don't think anybody could have predicted, and it's great.
Yeah, you'd have got good money on betting on the Bengals being in the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
But that's it's going to be a great game, and yeah, I think there'll be a lot of people cheering on the Bengals because the Rams have they've traded away the future of their team for this year, so
Yes.
they're sort of all in on this.
This is kind of like the new meta in the NFL now, isn't it? It's like, I'd spend more money than we have for one good run at it. Tom Brady's now retired after the Bucks did that for a couple of years. It's been a really interesting little football season. But Trips, the Super Bowl, I need to know what your prediction is going to be. Is it going to be the Bengals or is it going to be the Rams?
So, as a 49ers fan, I've seen the Rams do
Yes.
their best to screw up, and I'm sorry for the Rams fans. I think at some point in the third quarter, Stafford is going to break your heart with that gut wrenching pick that he throws out every once in a while, and the Bengals are going to come back in the last 10 minutes and shock us
Hmm.
all.
So you think that Stafford's going to do a Garoppolo? And
Yeah,
yeah, no, dude, you know what? I'd be very excited for the Bengals to win. I think I want them to win, but actually, having watched the Packers play against Matt Stafford for 10 to 12 years, and the fact that Aaron Rodgers loves Stafford so much as a quarterback as well, it's like this guy is amazing. He just needs to be on a proper team. Ta-da! So actually, I don't mind. I kind of think I'd like Stafford to win this one because Burrow's only in his second year. So Burrow is going to have plenty of opportunity to run out again. So it's a good one. I did the pick videos. The pick videos for the first 2 rounds went quite good.
yeah.
Went 5-1 in the first one, and then went 0-4 in the second, which was complete garbage. Yeah, it was an interesting one, but it was fun anyway. And if you like your sports, that's good. But the cool thing is, the Super Bowl will be the night of the second semi-final, hopefully for the Bonehead Championship, and then the week after will be the Bonehead Championship final. So when you're sitting at home thinking, "Oh, I miss football," watch the Bonehead Championship because that first week of misery after the football season ends, if you're an NFL fan, come watch some Blood Bowl. Yeah. Anyway, I think that for me, that's all the hobby goodness. Trips, anything else exciting for you?
Nothing else. Just looking forward to next weekend and seeing the biggest Blood Bowl tournament we've ever been to.
Ah, it's going to be awesome. Right. Talking of awesome stuff and exciting news, I think it's time to talk about the big thing that we've not talked about. So let's go talk about that. Okay, so we had a very busy Blood Bowl news weekend that all started with this picture here. Now, this picture is of a rat ogre box with what it was inside, not at all being a rat ogre. It was hairy, it had claws, but it had jaws. And this went huge Saturday night, I think it was. Trips, is that right?
Yeah, it was Saturday night. I woke up Sunday morning to that picture in our group chat, and I was like, "What? What have I missed?"
Yeah, yeah. Sunday morning. So what did Tiff and I do? Tiff and I did something on Saturday. I think it might have just been, did we go out for dinner or was it movie night or something? Can't remember. We did something, and it meant that I was not paying attention to hobby of an evening, and it was lovely. And then I woke up the next day, and there was messages and emails and the group chat, and I was like, "What has happened?" And then we saw this, and it led to what has to be a great 24 hours of conspiracy theories. So basically, several people had bought a rat ogre, and it had been delivered, and inside it was what appeared to be a completely different model. And the people who got it did a great job. They kept all the Games Workshop tabs, because if you bought a resin model from Forge World, they've got these chunky plinths of resin that I'm assuming is important to the casting process and to just making your product feel like it's worth the £47 that you've paid for it. And then there was a picture of it built, and it very much looked like a Yeti. And there was some bits there, but this is my favorite bit, and I don't know what you thought about this, Ian, but like how it went from, oh cool, I've got a Yeti, to that's fake, that's not a real Games Workshop model, which was my first thing. I mean, that was when you saw it, did you think it was fake?
So when I saw it with the that big chunky base on, uh, I just thought someone's made a huge cock up, but that's a preview model in a rat ogre box. And I think there were two sets of people: those who would wish they tried to buy a rat ogre and were trying to get a snow yeti, and those who were determined that April had arrived a bit early and we were being absolutely wound up.
That is it. And I've got to say, I was convinced it was real, but never underestimate people on the internet, because it could have been faked and it would have had to been done incredibly well. Anyway, this model landed, they showed these build versions of it, and it was like, this is a Yeti. There was a couple of speculations that maybe it was a Vargulf, maybe it was a bat person for vampire teams, and it got crazy. And we speculated on the channel, we were like, you know what's going to happen tomorrow? It's going to be New Miniature Monday, and we are going to see Games Workshop kind of scramble around to unveil what it was in the end. And what it was in the end was, in fact, a Yeti. And the thing I absolutely love about what Games Workshop did was they played into the Bigfoot vibe. They said, look, there's this fuzzy picture, and the movement pose looks so much like the classic Bigfoot picture as well, that it was just excellent. And when I did the video on the Sunday, I chucked in the Bigfoot photo, because this was just massively the vibe, and I was over the moon with all of it. I thought it was brilliant fun, and now they've released the fact that we've got this Yeti. So I guess my first question is, Ian, what do you think to the model?
So I like the model, and I mean it's. I think the painted up version they showed does the model much more justice than the pictures we saw, because there was lots of concern about the scale and the legs and the arms. But I think the paint job of the model really brings it out nicely.
Yeah, I completely agree. Um, Oh, I've got the photo of the Yeti, but it's upside down. Anyway, yeah, when it was first shown up, there was even people saying, "Oh, this isn't a Games Workshop model." You know, look at the proportions, look at the legs. The legs are too small, the arms too big. This is someone else has done this. It was awesome, the speculation. But when you see it painted, it's just phenomenally good, and this has got to mean that we're seeing Norse next, Ian. Surely.
Oh, it. I mean, the article doesn't confirm or deny anything, but there's no way you'd make a Yeti model without the team that the Yeti plays for.
Yeah, and this is really interesting. So, I mean, let's talk about the monumental mess up first of all. I mean, the other great part to the puzzle about this was how many accusations were there saying Games Workshop have leaked this on purpose. Uh, do you think that could be in any way true?
I don't think that could be true, but I do wonder, do you get a refund on your Rat Ogre if you get a Snow Yeti?
Well, that's one thing we need to find out. But Games Workshop customer service, generally speaking, are really good. So I'm pretty sure that these guys just got a free Yeti model, which is just awesome. So when my Rat Ogre turned up, I was gutted to find a Rat Ogre in it. I was like, come on, let's do this. I mean, I have an opinion on this one, and I think I want you to tell me whether this is reasonable or not. So, from a production point of view, what I believe to have happened is, yes, the people who sort the models will probably be sorted automatically. Okay, by the you cast the models, you chuck them in a big box, one arm, one arm, one arm, one arm, one leg, one leg, one leg, one leg. But the packet is sealed. And I mean, I don't know when the last time you bought a Forge World model was, Ian, but they are sealed real good, and you are going to need an X-Acto blade to cut it open. You can't seal stuff like that by hand. That is done by machine. So I think they split the models up, and then they go into the run. It gets carded and it gets sealed, and I imagine that is done by a machine. What I think has probably happened is that Carl, the new guy, has left paper in the printer. I mean, you and I have both worked in many offices, and it's always fun to see, confidential stuff that people have just left in the printer. And you're like,
Oh,
yeah, come on, guys. So I believe someone just loaded up the printer, left the Rat Ogre ones in the bottom. The printer was full. They've then gone to box up the Yetis, and they've whipped it through, and it's been labelled up with the Rat Ogre instead. And then John's come along and gone, for goodness sake, Carl. Or someone's just noticed that they're Rat Ogres. And when you look at a box full of Rat Ogres, it's grey plastic with a massive picture of a Rat Ogre, right? So they're just going to go, right, no, that batch there, they've been put in with the Yetis, like, that's ridiculous. Like, whip them out, come on, let's put them back. Someone's gone, oh, Rat Ogres are mixed in, that's stupid, and put them back in with the Rat Ogres without checking the models, and then they've sent out the Rat Ogres, and it's actually just because of that labelling error. That's my grand theory.
that would work. That theory could be really backed up if you order a Yeti in the future and you get a Rat Ogre.
Yeah, that would suck. That would be really disappointing. As long as you don't accidentally get a Frankenstein, then it's probably fine. But no, I don't think Games Workshop would ever do this as a hype thing. However, it works, so maybe they do. I don't know.
It works. The bit that makes me think they didn't do it as a hype thing is that the article looks like it was a Monday morning panicked marketing meeting of, we're going to have to confirm it. We don't have anything else to say. So let's get some pictures. Let's get it up.
Yeah.
And let's try and forget that this weekend happened.
And I think they did a great job. And the way they've posed it is exactly the same as the classic Yeti walking model, the Bigfoot walking pose from the photo. And I think it's excellent. So whoever's done that, excellent recovery. you know what, confirming the model is brilliant. It built up a huge amount of excitement. I think they've just done a really good job of taking an innocent mistake and just maximizing it. And I've got to say, I mean, Trips, you and I work in corporate environment. Well played. Like they dropped the ball, they picked up the ball, and they threw a touchdown. Like that's yeah. They didn't quite Garoppolo it. Yeah, sadly they Aaron Rodgers it. Anyway, great model. So now the big question. This is a spoiled model. This has been potato cammed, but they clearly had one painted up. Nobody can paint this in 24 hours. Not like this. Not this good. So this has been done, but I don't know how long their release schedule is ahead of time. I mean, we could, I guess, still see high elves. Do you think?
Yeah.
Do you think they would change the release schedule?
I don't think they'd change the release. I think too much is set in stone months in advance with stuff nowadays. I don't think that'll change. And we all remember the Treeman. Is the Treeman come out yet?
It's been out for years, isn't it? Yeah, you're bang on.
So I don't think they'll change the release schedule. But yeah, I think we're seeing a Norse team in the next 3 to 6 months tops.
And that's it. So we had a good chat about this in some of the video comments about when we could see Norse and stuff like this, and they sort of said, well, what did last year's releases look like? And last year was a very atypical year, and I think, you know, we saw the huge volume of releases at the end of the year, which really tied in with the shipping stuff getting back to normal, didn't it? So
yeah, everything was stuck on a boat somewhere for far too long.
Yeah. And the Almanac, do you think the Almanac was supposed to be released in now, or do you think it was supposed to be released before Christmas?
So previously they were always released just before Christmas.
Yeah.
But you've got to have a gap between the last spike and it coming out. Otherwise, you're just going to murder the sales of that spike.
That's a really good point, actually. I hadn't considered that. I kind of thought maybe they didn't want to drop it at the same time as Dungeon Bowl, but I don't think that would bother them. But I do think that maybe with the Almanac landing now in the essentially the February time slot, I think, what have we got? I think there's a Adepticon. Is it Adepticon in April?
Yeah.
I think that's probably when we'll see the next team. And if they've got this model ready to go, then yeah, it's probably Norse end of March, April time. And that would be my prediction. But the question is, what do you think? How much do you think the roster will change?
Well, it's controversial, this one. So, some people would say that the Norse have too many positionals. I've heard that once or twice. And they seem to be going with that sort of standard roster build model. I hope they don't tweak the roster too much, because I think Norse can be really good fun, and they're the classic team of, if your dice roll well, you'll have a great day. If your dice don't roll well, you'll need 5 journeymen next week.
The catchers on that team are sneakily some of the best players kicking around. Movement 7 with block and agility access means that they are blodgers in no time at all. But they need it because, like you said, they're armor 8+. So it's a really interesting roster. Part of me thinks we should see a little bit of a change to the roster. And yes, I am the person who says there's too many positionals, because I think the Berserkers and the Ulfwereners are a bit too much of a crossover. It's a strange one. And the thrower,
I can see one of them being dropped or a tweak to them, and you can have 4 maybe.
Yeah, and I don't know if we'll see that. Or I think I would prefer the thrower to go, and just change the catcher into a runner name. Because the thrower is a strange one. It's an interesting one. I don't know what they'll do for the box set. But one of the great things that came out of this article that Milton actually picked up on, the Yeti's number is numbered up with 15, which raises the question of, does that mean that the Norse box has 14 players in? is this too much of a stretch, Trips, or do you think I think that's pretty reasonable. I think that's a pretty clever assumption.
I think that it's a good assumption, but that's assuming that they've thought through the number of players in the box, who the Yeti's going to be, and they've told the person painting the model all of that.
Well, they've given them the transfers because these are
Yep.
the transfers. So,
They're definitely transfers, yeah.
yeah, there's a really cool dragon head that looks like it's from the front of a longboat.
Yeah.
As the team icon there. Oh, Forge World, I am a human. Stop telling me to click pictures of buses. Why do this, Forge World? Very strange.
All the time.
Yeah.
So annoying.
Baffling. It's like what robot is trying to do stuff to Forge World? Anyway, yeah, so I don't know. I think there is definitely an argument to be made for it. And when we did the maths on the player types, 2 Wolfrunners, 2 catchers, 2 berserkers, 2 throwers, and 6 linemen comes to 14. So if they don't tweak the roster and they provide 14 players in a box, which one would be amazing, and that would tie in nicely. Could you see them doing that?
I can see them doing it. We've seen a few more teams that are one box, and they're very popular because you can literally buy the box, build them up, and take them to club 2 days later.
That's it. You're one and done, and it is really interesting to think that that's what they might be doing. Now the teams we've seen 14 players in have been skinny teams because if you think about what we've had, Undead and Necro, they had 14 players in, right? But most of their players are not a lot of plastic. They're skinny models that don't take up a huge amount of space on the sprues. The Corn team, with a couple of strength 4 boys and a whole bunch of muscle, which you would have to assume that the Norse guys would be the same kind of proportion as the Corn team. I don't think they could have fit an extra 2 Corn guys on that roster.
No.
And that would be potentially my counter argument. Just doing a bit of digging here. I'm checking out the Bloodspawn to see if it was numbered, and it wasn't numbered. Okay, I thought maybe there's a bit of correlation there. So it's a very interesting one. But I mean, Norse Landing is pretty great. Okay, the Rot Spawn is numbered 13, and there was 12 dudes in the box. The Rat Ogre is numbered? He is numbered. Oh, he's numbered 15. All right.
Maybe it's their big guy number and they're doing it just to wind us all up.
Maybe it's just the whole conspiracy thing. Man, that Rat Ogre model is really nice. I feel bad. I mean, I think we should take a moment to respect the fact that they've released a really lovely Rat Ogre model and just...
Nobody wants it.
It's now, dead to us. Like, it's just, it got FOMO'd in the face. It's a terrible thing to happen to a Rat Ogre. Yeah, interesting. Right, so I think we're safe to say Norse confirmed, and we reckon spring release, and that's great news because there was a lot of concern about the Teams of Legend not landing, or being massively changed up or being overridden because the last 6 Games Workshop teams have been new teams. Khorne, new team. Black Orcs, Nobility, Snotlings. Is that it? All new teams. Then the Necro team was Team of Legend but got revamped.
Yep.
And then the team before that was Underworld or OWA.
Yeah.
And they got revamped as well?
Yeah, Underworld and OWA both got revamped before anyone could play them first time around.
So the last 7
Ogres
teams
before that.
And yeah, the Ogres got rejugged as well. So the 8 of the last teams, 4 have been brand new, and the other 4 have all been adjusted. So this is why I lean on the side of Norse getting an adjustment. And then, do you know what we're going to get, Trips? From the conspiracy point of view, it's going to be the classic. Games Workshop has changed this up to set the third party on fire.
Well, of course, I have a third-party Norse team that never quite have made it onto the tabletop, mainly thanks to a pandemic. So
Oh
yeah,
yeah, that was
I'm
gutting.
hope yeah, really hoping that I can get the team out the models, and yeah, they might be the next team that I look at.
The next project team. Yeah, Milton built a custom Norse team that will never. Well, he did. He went and he came third in a tournament, I think. Or did he win? No, he didn't quite win. I think he came third. So had a good outing with his Norse team, but he was like, "Oh, for flip's sake, I knew this was going to happen." And we talked about it because this
I think
is
he called it while he was doing it.
he did
'Cause,
actually, and this is definitely one of the massive risks of Team of Legend, is Games Workshop. They like change. They like change for the sake of change most of the time, and Teams of Legend, they're not risking anything by changing them up. And this has led to some great theories. I don't know if you've heard these ones, Strips, like about Amazons being folded into Norse was one of the biggest ones that people were talking about. Because obviously the aesthetic of just a bunch of barbarian women doesn't massively line up to where Games Workshop want to be from a corporate standpoint now. And they've done a great job making things more sensible, making armor sometimes anyway. And that's just, and mixing up the genders in every model kit now feels like it's almost a 50-50 split between.
yeah, I don't think they'll do that with the Amazon and Norse. I think I think we'll see a Norse team as a Norse team. I think the Yeti's a good sign.
Yeah,
I
I'd
think
love,
they'll be
I'd
a
love,
popular team then.
I'd love a couple of Shield Maidens though. If they go a Norse design, more akin to a Vikings design, than.
Yeah,
I mean, when I think of Norse, I think of the classic Norse model who's bare-chested with one arm curled, standing there jolly as the day is long. That's what I think of when I think of the Norse team. Um, but actually, if they go a little bit more, Viking-y instead, there's a cool bit of design there to go with. And I
but
get, yeah,
loads of design and there's so much hobby space because yeah, there's you can pick a Norse team from many different worlds, many different bits of lore, yeah, and no one's going to argue that it's not a Norse team.
no, exactly. Oh, there he is, Norse Lineman 2. That's who I'm talking about. Let me see if I can get this up on the screen. Ooh, there's some pixels in that, isn't there? About 5 of them. That's oh, never mind. Pixels for the win. Right, where's my picture there? I do love the classic Norse models. They are great. They are dumb, but they are great. And the Norse team itself has a really cool playstyle, I think. But that's, yeah. If we move away from this design and go to something a little bit more sporty, I think it'll be a pretty decent factor. But if they don't, and I can also see in Norse being the first team that they just don't touch, because the thrower gives you an option to just flex out. And I mean, I got a lot of flame on Tinterweb when I did the Norse starting rosters, or no, the Norse tournament rosters, and I included a thrower because everyone's like, "The heck are you including throwers, Thor? Like, don't even take him, don't even take him." And they become a leader caddy in a tournament environment. That's it. And but I can see, because I think players think that's dumb. Games Workshop tends to go, it doesn't need fixing right now.
I could see them dropping block from the Norse thrower and throwing on running past there just to really get us
Oh,
talking about it.
that would, yeah. Here's a player that you don't like, or now you really don't like him. Yeah, let's give him animal savagery as well, just to really go for it. Ooh, what do you think about the Ulf Warriors getting animal savagery?
That would sort of fit. That would change quite a lot how you build a roster because you have to think a little bit more carefully about it.
What about 0 to 4 Ulf Warriors, but they have animal savagery or something? That would be
Ooh,
just horrific. But this is
yeah,
it.
then then you're looking for the skill package where you can take pro all over the place.
Yeah, interesting one. It's interesting to see. I mean, I'm very lucky in that I have more teams than I can ever use. So when it comes to Team of Legends, like I'll make a team and run it and actually upgrade it when Games Workshop drop it. And I mean, look, I've got like 4 dwarf teams, and I'll probably never run one. And it's fine. So when it comes to the Norse team or the Amazon team like that, I do definitely caution you from going third party. There's some great stuff out there, but it's a risky 80 quid if you're picking up a third party team.
Especially now. I mean, now you know they're coming. I'd wait, and we've seen third party companies respond really quickly to the roster changes and get the additional positionals or the additional players sorted. So yeah,
Grebo are especially very good at this.
Yeah,
I love it. Well, I think that basically wraps up the Norse talk. Trips, anything you think we've missed?
No, just I think we'll see a lot of Norse in the second half of the year in tournaments.
Yeah, I wonder what they'll do star player wise, but hey, I guess we'll find out in a couple of months' time. And we're back. So, big release at the moment is the 2022 Almanac. Now, this was pre-ordered last weekend, comes out this weekend. So, I thought it would be worthwhile talking through some of the contents. Now, there's a couple of bits we're not going to go into massive detail on because we kind of want to take that away and play with it before we do. So, brief summary of the contents before we take a deep dive into anything. The Necromantic team, Nobility and Black Orc, and the Khorne, their spikes, the information in their spikes, the setups, the team development articles, the star player articles, everything from those spikes, that spike 11, 12 and 13, is in this almanac. So if you've got those spike magazines, you will already have that content. If you don't have those spike magazines, well, then you are good to go and you are in for a wonderful time with this almanac, because spike 11, I maintain, is the best spike they've released. The Khorne one's great too, and there's a lot of fluff in those, which is wicked. The second, and I think probably the most important thing in this, is the Goblin Star player rules. Now, the Goblin Star players, we've seen the models. The models aren't quite released yet, but the rules are in there, and we are going to have a good chat about those. All-Star Games, which is an interesting one, which was literally just 11 plus star players against 11 plus star players. We'll have a little chat about that, Trips. There's long-term contracts, which means actually hiring a star player permanently on your roster as well. That's one of the things that we're going to do in a Theory Thursday. Multiplayer Dungeon Bowl, we'll talk about that. And the referee rules, which is straight out of the White Dwarf. So if you've got the Spike magazines and you've got the White Dwarf, the Goblin Star player rules are in here. They will be released as PDFs at some point. So if you've got all that gear, you are getting all-star game rules, long-term contracts, and multiplayer Dungeon Bowl. The long-term contracts piece is really important if you're running a league that wants to use that rule. So if you're a league player, that contracts bit going to be really important for you, because your players are going to ask you if they can just keep Hackflem or keep Griff on the team. So definitely one to be aware of when it comes to this almanac. It's an interesting one. So Trips, you said this a second ago, the almanacs, you know, what do you think they're supposed to be, and who do you think they're supposed to be for?
Well, they are absolutely, here's everything that was released last year that's not in a book, and from wherever it was written or done, and a little bit of bonus stuff in it, which is really good. And it's for someone like me. So I haven't bought the spikes last year. I've enjoyed looking at them, but I haven't bought the spikes. And I've always had the almanacs because I want the complete set and want them. But it's nice to see them in that lovely hardbound book at the end of the year and all in one place. And it's a real little treat.
It is, and it is a bit. If you've got all the gear, it is a little bit superfluous. But I do also like you said, that they've got little articles in there that give you a little bit extra content. It's just a nice release to have, and it's at a pretty reasonable price point. So you do not need it. If you're a league guy, there's definitely that rule in there your players are going to ask you about. So someone in the league is going to need it, or watch the Theory Thursday next Thursday about it, because it's kind of, yeah, it's definitely an optional rule, but it is quite an exciting rule. the books are really nicely done. The Dungeon Ball book is really nicely done. I'm upset they've not released the digital version of the Dungeon Ball book, because actually the digital versions of these books are excellent. We use them all of the time because they're so useful to get on while you're in a meeting at work. Like,
Yes.
what does that skill do? Yeah, it's just a pretty useful way of doing it. So yeah, that's what the Almanac is for. It is not. So some of the other Games Workshop games, they have the General's Handbook, and they have the is it chapter approved for 40k?
Chapter approved 40k Tomb of Champions
That's
for
it,
the
for
War Cry.
Warcry. That has got pretty important competitive stuff in it. Now, Games Workshop with Blood Bowl, that important competitive stuff comes out in the FAQ, which is actually pretty great. The Almanacs are just for completionists, for collectors, and I think Death Zone is probably the best example of this, where Death Zone was 100% full of stuff that you 200% do not need at all. And the Almanac is very much like that. Like, you don't need it at all. But if you love Blood Bowl and you love reading stuff and you just love having a good book to flick through, it's a really great place to be. Now, if you've got the Necromantic Spike, you've got the Corn Spike, and you've got the Imperial Nobility and Black Orc Spike, which I didn't think was that good, then 2/3 of this book is going to be nothing to you. But as it stands in the release schedule right now, the most important thing in this book are those 2 Goblin Star players, Ian. And I think this is the biggest thing that comes out of this. And yes, the PDF is going to be available for these star players at some point on the site. And if you buy them, the star player thing from Forge World, the stats come on the back of the card. Fungus the Loon and Bomber Dribblesnot land here. And I mean, have you seen the stats for these guys yet, Trips?
Yeah, I've seen the stats. They well, if you're a Goblin coach, you are so happy to finally see some more options.
Yeah. Fungus the Loon is they're both excellent star players. So Fungus the Loon, movement 4, strength 7, edge 3 plus, armor 8 plus, 80k. Ball and Chain, Mighty Blow +1, Loner 4 plus, no hand, secret weapon, stunty. So 80k, which is what, 10 more than a standard Ball and Chain, 1 extra movement, which when you are a Ball and Chain is massive, and Mighty Blow. This is the perfect fanatic for 10k more, and it's got the Whirling Dervish ability that once per activation, not once per half or once per game as the rest of the star players power. But I didn't use Hackflim's star player ability. No, never mind. Which is apparently very forgettable. The Whirling Dervish means you get to re-roll once per activation the d6 when you're rolling the scatter template to determine which direction you go. So he's got movement 4, and really in those movement 4 you get 5 shots at hitting something that you want to hit before you even go and take 2 rushes like an absolute madman, and you get Mighty Blow on those blocks for 80k. It's just,
yeah, you can't see a Goblin team that won't have Fungus in going forward, because you just, why would you not?
yeah, I mean, this guy puts the fun in Blood Bowl, or puts the fungus in Blood Bowl, should I say. And then you've got Bomber, who is also excellent. Now, I don't know if you'll always see Goblin teams take both like that. They're 2-star player maximum is important, and actually there's going to be times where you don't quite have the amount of cash you need. But Bomber Dribblesnot, 50k, movement 6, strength 2, edge 3 plus, passing 3 plus, armor 8 plus, 50k, right? 5k more than a standard bomber. Accurate, bombardier dodge, loner 4 plus, right stuff, secret weapon, stunty. So here's a bombardier with +1 passing and accurate. This dude is 2 plus quick bombing stuff. It's wicked for 50 flipping k.
Again, you can't not look at that when you're, well, if you were any other coach, you'd want that. And if you're a Goblin coach, you're like, I need it.
Yeah.
I need him to hit what I need him to hit.
And if you do hit the dude you want to hit and they catch it, his ability Kaboom means that once per game, someone who catches a bomb, it just goes off anyway. So you throw it at that war dancer who's 3 squares away. It's a 2+ roll, and then if they try and catch it on a 1, they drop the bomb and it explodes and they go down and get mighty blown by the bomb. And if they catch it, it explodes. They go down and get hit by the mighty blow bomb. This is a 2+. I'm going to punch your war dancer in the face, and it's just, and you know what? If you're standing 6 squares away, fine, it's a 3+. And if I roll a 2, it's just going to bounce around 3 squares anyway. This is epic. The bomber and fungus gives you more goblin, right? Bomber, this guy is, you know, in Saving Private Ryan, you got the dude with the sniper rifle, and he just wins the game until, you know, the tank happens. Spoilers. Bomber Dribblesnot is the sniper of Blood Bowl, and this is just such a superb equalizer. And that, I think, is what's been missing from the, if you see you're coming up against a Goblin team, you can be pretty flipping sure that they're going to be running Bomber or Fungus, maybe even both. And that's a challenge.
Yeah, I think having played against them in the old version, both these guys, just seeing one of them, it makes you play the Goblin team differently as an opposition coach. That's what you want out of your star players. You want your coach to have to go, I can't leave him there, or I can't get in his way.
I have to play around this. This gives me, it's a new, I mean, you and I are always talking about like the fact you do mixed teams and things like that is a different way to play and presents you with new challenges. Well, you're playing against a Goblin team, there's danger now, and there wasn't a huge amount of danger before. It was like, right, they've got a fanatic, that's fine, I'll stack my guys up against the fanatics and the trolls are going to troll things. Well, now this dude's got 2 fanatics and a bombardier that is once per game just going to nuke your cage. Like, doesn't even matter. Doesn't matter at all. You cage up and bomber is across the pitch, that cage is going to die at some point. Now, obviously, that is a little tiny minuscule piece of hyperbole, and there's always definitely the opportunity to not let that happen, but, you know, that's fine. Now, that is Goblin teams. The team list for both of these guys, which is Badlands Brawl and Underworld Challenge, is also, and I don't think I'm being over the top here. I do love a bit of that. This is game changing. Okay, Badlands Brawls, Black Orcs, who have half-price bribes. Oh, yeah. Chaos Dwarves, who are not a bad team. They're not even in the bottom 25 teams, right? And there's only 29 teams in Blood Bowl. Goblins, yeah. Ogres, who are not necessarily short of inducement cash. Orcs, who actually could use a little bit of spice every now and again. Snotlings, who have unlimited money. They might as well be called... No, it can't be called the Amazons because that's actually a team. That's hilarious. Yeah. Anyway, the Bezos Snotlings.
Well, the only problem for the old Snotling coach with these is they're almost so cheap that what are you going to do with all the rest of that inducement cash? Because you can't have 5 wizards.
But you can't. I don't believe the giant takes up a star player slot, does he? He maybe does actually. Maybe he does. Anyway,
yeah, I think it does as an inducement.
Yeah. And Underworld Challenge, so Skaven teams can take these players, and so can Underworld. And this is really interesting because these stars are so cheap and, quite frankly, so ubiquitous. You have 100% hit on it right there, Trips. Is the only time these teams are not going to be running both is when actually it leaves them with too much money left over. And all of these teams, with the exception of Chaos Dwarves and kind of Ogres, could max out their roster. Goblins, you can basically get everything you want. Black Orcs, you can get everything you want. Orcs, definitely. Snotlings, too much. Ogres, you know what? It is a struggle to afford more than 4 Ogres. Skaven, you get everything you want, basically. And Underworld, you get everything you want, basically. So a lot of these teams max out on their positionals and gear at 1 million, which means if you're in a league, you've got a new team or you're punching up, you've got these guys available. But yeah, the difficulty is, the limiting factor is going to be if you can afford Hackflem, I think you're still taking Hackflem for most of these teams.
Yeah.
But if you can't afford Hackflem, you've got this, and it's not even the most exciting bit, Ian. I'm so excited by this. You can also take Creek Rustgouger, the Verminator, who is 170k, but also has an auto bribe in there. So let's say he's basically worth 120k and comes with a free auto bribe. Him plus old ball and chain fungus. That's 240k for both of those star players. So with a goblin roster, you can run a fanatic and a creek and a dude and a fungus, and it's just absolute carnage. I just think this is awesome. But I think you're right. I think because these are so cheap, we are going to see them so often. I mean,
Oh yeah. I mean, I'm looking at it as a Black Hawk coach in the league, going, if I have a bad game and I'm missing some players or I'm playing a higher TV side, I'm actually going to have the chance to induce a star player now, and I'm going to enjoy that.
yes, it's fun. You get choices, and that's really cool because they're both sitting in that inducement sweet spot of I can afford a keg. Like keg and change is kind of how it goes. Well, now you can take a keg, you can take another bribe goblin team, or you can take a bomber that hits stuff on a 2+, or you can take a Skaven team. You're punching down, okay? You're at TV 1100. You're playing against a TV 1200 team. Would you like one apothecary, or would you like a strength 7 movement 4 mighty blow ball and chain that can equalize on numbers? I remember running Fezglitch against a dwarf team with my Skaven team, and he made a difference. It's almost removal. It's not everything in Blood Bowl's risky, right? But this guy gives you the opportunity to take out 0 to 3 players, and it's swingy, but it's gonna work. And most importantly, both of these guys are going to, when you deploy them in a drive, it is going to warp the game. Your opponent is going to have to change up their moves. Otherwise, they're just walking into a disaster. And it's huge.
Yeah, you're going to have to play differently when you play against them. As a goblin coach now, you've got options that you haven't, and for the other teams, you're going to have options you haven't. And if you've got a small bit of inducement cash, you want to be able to get a value for money out of that, rather than thinking, did I ever roll anything with that keg?
I got a keg and
These
rolled
guys
twos.
we're going to see them a lot.
Yeah, we're going to
Yeah.
see them a lot in tournaments, in league, and I think that's excellent. I think they're the biggest win for the Almanac for me. Now, back on the Almanac, we've also got the All-Star games to look at. And this is really interesting. I mean, what was your thought on this, Trips, of 11 stars versus 11 stars?
I think for experienced Blood Bowl players, this is just going to be that classic. It's another bit of fun, and it's something else to do and go. Yeah, I'm sure that there's few people going to want to do it and have to buy a few more models as well, which GW will be really upset with you if you spend
Yeah.
more money with them.
What's that? 22 star players minimum at £20 each is it's about £500. So part of me thinks this is super cool. Part of me also thinks, whoa, 22 different players on the pitch with different stats and different special abilities. Excellent exhibition match, like really fun at the end of a league. We did this at the end of Wobble 3. We had a Pro Bowl where we split the coaches into 2 teams and we drafted players, and it was fun but complicated, and I think the star players would make that even more crunchy. But you're right, it just gives you a cool other way to play the game.
And at least in this game, you wouldn't forget that star players had a special rule, because
That's the
every
whole
turn you'd
point.
be using like 2.
Yeah. I think it's quite interesting. The article goes in there and talks about how to draft star players as well, to have a draft. So if you take a star, you can take a star player combo, so Grack and Crumbleberry or the Swift Twins, but it costs you 2 picks. It's quite cool. And if you're in a league situation where you've got a Saturday morning or a Sunday evening, now the NFL's over, you could be like, let's draft and play a star player game. This is cool. It's an interesting one, and yeah, I love that they're opening up this. But we've looked at tournament stuff. When it comes to the Goblins, the biggest league impact here will be the long-term contracts. Now, it's a real short article. It's like 3 pages. It's interesting. The way it's done is you buy a team, you kind of attach a star player to your team. Like I said, we'll go into more detail at a Theory Thursday for next week, so that if you have got a league, this is it's going to brief you on how it works. The interesting thing is, if you retain that star player into the second season, they lose loaner. Which I thought was really interesting, because I think we've talked about this with free agents before. Actually, if a player levels, because the one thing missing from Blood Bowl is the ability to make big trades. And I think we're going to see that at some point in an almanac, because when it comes to the NFL or even like English football, the big trades are really exciting. So Tom Brady leaving the Patriots and going to the Buccaneers was huge. Stafford going from the Detroit Lions to the Rams and now taking them to the Super Bowl is huge. Everyone panicking about where Garoppolo and Rodgers are going to go next year. It's a massive pickup, and it's a really interesting bit that's missing from Blood Bowl. But we've talked about, like, actually maybe you could trade for players, but they join and they get loaner, and at the end of the season, if they stay, they don't have loaner anymore. They've done this with star players. And one thing we talked about in, I think, a couple of episodes ago was about star players having a special roster that you can take that's a slightly warped version. Well, this kind of fits that, is you can play a Griff team now. And that's something that Blood Bowl doesn't have. Like, you can buy a Griff model, you can love it, but you may never get to use him.
Yeah, it's merging that line between that tournament roster that you spend weeks bubbling up and you finally build it around that star player, and the league team where you desperately want to play with a star player just once in the league. That's giving you that option to really use your miniatures and play with them more. So,
which is, I think it's really great. Whether you're going to see it used in your league or not very often, I don't know, but there's going to be when it comes to veteran leagues, competitive veteran leagues, they may not like it. It may be not suitable. But if you're a rookie league and you're playing Blood Bowl because you love the fun of playing Blood Bowl and you love the carnage of Blood Bowl, and every week you're busting out your special play cards because it's really good fun, then actually taking the Morgue Snotling team.
Imagine playing a little stunty league where everyone's stunty leagues, star players rostered in. Yeah,
it's just a really cool way to have a bit of fun with Blood Bowl, and I like that. And talking about fun ways to have Blood Bowl, multiplayer Dungeon Bowl. This is really interesting. It's super rules light. Okay, you build a dungeon, you add an end zone per player, and you can score in any one of the end zones, and it's the first person to score wins the game, and you play clockwise, basically. That's it. We've just described that entire segment, but I mean, Trips, how much fun does that sound?
Oh, that's going to be really good fun. I mean, it's another way to play the game. It's going to be a bit of fun. It's going to be one of those where there is going to be a game one day where some poor soul goes, I haven't even had turn one and the game is over. How did that happen?
At that point, you rack it up and play again. That's why I think Dungeon Bowl and Sevens are similar in that regard, is that actually you play the game. And a multiplayer, any kind of game, generally speaking, is a terrible idea, because it doesn't matter how many players you are playing with, unless you are playing on teams, someone's going to get ganged up on, and you cannot support other teams' players, which is a very good rule. So you can't just my guard's gonna support in this guy in this turn. So actually that's a sensible ruling there as well. So how that interaction works is useful.
This feels great for that whole, you can meet a couple of mates for a sort of a quick gaming afternoon. You're like, I haven't played any Dungeon Bowl. Well, let's all play some Dungeon Bowl and let's have some fun.
Yeah, I think that's really cool. I mean, I really would have liked to see some other rules or some more stuff in there, but actually, what they've got in that article is very logical, and it works out nicely. And uh, and that's awesome. Now, talking of articles, the referee rules in there is the article from White Dwarf. It was White Dwarf, wasn't it?
Yeah, White Dwarf it was in.
Yeah, and that is the Almanac. There's a bunch of pictures in it as well. There's some stuff in there about who won the Blood Bowl each year, but I don't know like how important that is to you.
It's a nice bit of fluff. Nice. It's something just to fill out your knowledge. It
Yeah,
feels a bit more like the old companion that they had
yeah.
back in second edition days, when you'd be like, "Oh, I never read that tiny weird article."
The second edition handbook was peak Blood Bowl though. I think would be it was excellent. That I love that thing. Right, well that wraps up the Almanac's contents. Ian, what's your thoughts on it? Positive, negative, medium?
Absolutely positive. I am. Can't wait till Saturday to go pick up, and she'll be flicking through it Saturday afternoon while brewing up what bit of hobby to do next.
Yeah. So I think it's always important to take the angle of better if. That's a probably just a life thing. It's great to have it together in a book. If you haven't been able to pick up the spikes or haven't wanted to pick up the spikes, this is going to save you some money, and it's got a load of cool Blood Bowl stuff in, and they're opening up what they're doing with Blood Bowl. It is rules light. It is content light if you've already got the other stuff. And like the All-Star games, the long-term contracts, and the multiplayer Dungeon Bowl is probably about 6 pages of things. Having it together is pretty wicked, but I feel like they could have given us a little bit more, but then it would definitely be wandering into Death Zone territory, and I don't know if they know what the difference is. I don't know.
Yeah.
Like, this is like the All-Star games, long-term contracts, multiplayer Dungeon Bowl, that feels like Death Zone content. And I don't know if we're going to see a Death Zone again. I assume we are, but yeah, strange one. That's probably my only criticism, is that it is rules light if you've already got the gear, but I mean, it's more Blood Bowl, and more Blood Bowl is more better. So I'm a big fan of that. Anyway, we've got one more topic to talk about, so we're going to take a very quick break and we'll be right back. And we're back. So this technically has nothing to do with Blood Bowl, but I think there is an opportunity here, or a potential of this potentially straying into Blood Bowl land. So on the 28th of January, Games Workshop Warhammer community site dropped their thing just entitled Warhammer and the ITC. So the ITC is the International Tournament Circuit and is run by Frontline Gaming. Yep. And it's basically a worldwide tournament series, and it's for Warhammer 40k, it's for Age of Sigmar, it's for Kill Team, and I think they do Underworlds as well. And what Games Workshop are doing is teaming up with the ITC. So basically the article said it's early days, so we'll have lots more information coming, but we are forming an official partnership with the ITC to further support and champion Warhammer gaming across the world. The headline for now: taking part in official Warhammer events will earn you ITC points. Here's a quick look at some of the things you can look forward to. Every participant in an ITC tournament event, no matter how big or small, will have a chance to win an invitation to a special annual event, and will even cover your travel and accommodations. There will be a host of new event types and formats on offer, so whether you're a steadfast competitive player or committed narrative player, there'll be events and awards that recognise your skills and achievements. We'll be amping up rewards and recognition for the hobby track, with prizes equal to those on offer for the gaming accolades. So basically, the ITC puts some rough rules in place for tournaments, and the Games Workshop have gone, wow, this is big. What we'd like to do is support with prizes and just making it more official and more special. Now, in some ways, it is very similar to what the NAF does. In fact, if we just have a quick look at what the ITC page is before we go and look, it is there's kind of like a little thing here. So there's different categories to be eligible. Your tournament has to be a certain amount of things. So in order to qualify to be a rogue trader tournament, your game, it has to have 4 or less rounds, has to have less than 28 players. If you want to be a grand tournament, you have to have 5 games with at least 28 players, or 20 for Age of Sigmar. If you want to be a major, you have to have 40 players for Age of Sigmar and 58. Or a super major, it's 200 plus players and 7 rounds. Like, so they've got a really simple structure as to what events mean and how they qualify them. And you get points per event, which is very similar to a lot of the tournament series that happens in the NAF. Now, the tournament series for the NAF have been paused while the pandemic goes on, which I support wholeheartedly. Before that, I was running the SWTC, so the Southwest Tournament Championship. I don't know what's going to happen when it restarts. But Games Workshop have seen what the work that's going on with the ITC and want to kind of partnership with it. So where best to start talking about this? Let's go good, bad, good, Ian. I think let's be professional about this.
Yeah.
So the good side, I mean, what do you think about Games Workshop flagging up this organized play thing and going, hey, let's support you with it?
Well, I think if you're a competitive player and you go into tournaments, to have GW put their support behind it properly gives it some increased credibility, gives it much more visibility, and gives it some nice loot as well in the tournament.
Yeah, more loot is more better as well. So that it's really cool that they're not, they're kind of giving it an official seal. The thing that I was giddy about when I saw was this bit here. You will have a chance to win an invitation to a special annual event covering your travel and accommodations. So prior to 3 years ago, Magic the Gathering had the Pro Tour, and the Pro Tour was you played in certain events and you got points, and if you got a certain amount of points, you'd be invited to, there was once one a quarter was a Pro Tour, and if you won enough Grand Prix and stuff, you got the points to be invited to a Pro Tour, and you could go to a Pro Tour and Wizards would most of the time pay an attendance fee or the travel cost, and it was televised and they had proper coverage, and I just fell in love with it. It's just awesome, and this smacks of that, and I find it so exciting, and I think it's best that we take the big huge jump now, Ian. Is just imagine imagine the Blood Bowl Invitational hosted by Games Workshop at Warhammer World, and they pay travel and accommodation. Can you imagine? That is...
all of a sudden you'd see people really racking up the tournaments because it'd be worth it to get to that.
It's just so amazing. Now, 40k. Now, this is the difference here. Now, 40k Age of Sigmar, it costs like, to start playing Blood Bowl from nothing. All right, we're talking 25-30 for a team, 25-30 for a board. Let's say you buy the box set and a team. It's £100 or so to get into Blood Bowl proper. Okay, yeah. You can do it for less if you've got friends.
Less if you've got a friend.
Yeah, if you've got friends who are already in it, then you can get into Blood Bowl for free, because people who play Blood Bowl have too many teams, so straight away you can get in there for free. But 40k Age of Sigmar, you can't play that free. AOS, just getting into it is going to cost you £200. 40k, very similar, and they have a bigger meta where the should we say the capital attrition is a real factor, like when it comes to Age of Sigmar and 40k, because stuff gets nerfed and therefore is no good to play anymore. We don't see that in Blood Bowl, which is wonderful. Like, if you're a Goblin coach now, they're not going to all of a sudden say, well, actually Goblins are now strength 1. They're not going to do that, which is wonderful. They potentially might do that with Dwarves at some point, but probably won't, and probably don't need to. Can you see, or do you think it's feasible, or Do you think Games Workshop could or would want to buddy up with the NAF to do a similar thing?
Well, you can see a roadmap to it now on the basis that they've started, and let's really hope that this goes well for 40k and AOS. I think whether it's with the NAF, it's a slightly different organisation than NAF.
It
I mean,
really is. Yeah.
it's more about single tournaments rather than election.
It's really interesting. The NAF does more with less, right? When it comes to this, so the ITC does not do a lot. Like, you get a point score. They don't massively care about other stuff. They've got some restrictions, but actually, it's about the points, and you take your top 4 results or something like that, and they run it through. Their website's really like, there's one page, and it breaks it all down, and that's basically it. They do some stuff really well. Like, here's a spreadsheet. Fill in the spreadsheet. Send us the spreadsheet. Like, really good stuff. Way easier than it is to report tournament stats for the NAF. And the NAF, the way that the results and stuff, it's its own microclimate, and it works. And it's cool fun. The ITC framework is a lot more. It's just a lot light. It's a lot lighter touch, and it's a weird one. It's a lot lighter touch, but it's also more competitively driven. And so you're right. Like, the NAF is different from the ITC in a whole bunch of ways. And the NAF do generally really good work. I mean, I've got to say massive props to Al Weatherall and Alex, whose name is Stimmer, Alex Weiss, who's the standing-in tournament director. Yeah. Like, they're great. They're super supportive, and you know, the whole NAF crew fight against tech and legacy stuff that, oh man, it makes corporate Ben just giddy. But I just the exposure for Blood Bowl and ITC is very, I don't know how similar it is. This is my biggest question, because the NAF was a huge element of Blood Bowl and still is, but people who get into Blood Bowl will find the NAF at some point, and it's not like it's ubiquitous. It's a really strange subculture of Blood Bowl. They do great work, and I'm very happy to support them in every way I can. And they host the World Cup, but the way, I think it's because Blood Bowl is so incredibly feudal. And
yeah,
I think it, because of how it's organically developed over the Dark Age, where it was dropped. You know, every league does stuff that's slightly different. Every single tournament has to do its own thing. And you don't see that quite so much with 40k. Like, you go to an AOS tournament or a 40k tournament, it is, how many points is it? Cool. What are the missions? Like, that's where it is. Like, that's it. So the game is the game is the game.
Standard tournament games.
Yeah. Exactly. Whereas Blood Bowl, like you said, I think you called it, it's more about individual tournaments, because individual tournaments tend to have a really strong individual feel. And this is the interesting thing about Beachhead, is historically all of our tournaments, we go with a thematic element of it, right? This is our mixed team tournament. This is our Underground Sevens tournament, where you're playing in the sewers and there's going to be splash. The first Beachhead was on the coasts of Albion, so there was extra wind and weather, and you could take a swamp troll as a monster. You know, we leaned heavily into the theme. This Beachhead is potentially the closest thing to a standard competitive format for Blood Bowl that is out there. It is 1100. You got 5 or 6 skills. Go. Like, it's real clean and crisp, and that's unusual for Blood Bowl in a lot of times. Whereas the ITC is kind of clean and crisp the whole time because of that overarching competitive vibe. But just the prospect of Games Workshop going, whew, here's a proper big Blood Bowl event. But I do have another question for you, Trips. The ITC, there is I think they said there's a $4,000 prize for the overall winner at the end of a year or something like that. I read this earlier. And Blood Bowl, there's great prizes at tournaments, but you don't really play for the prize. You play for the victory most players play for the fun, but if you're going to go and try and win a tournament, it's to say that you won a tournament. It's never to be like, I'm going to win this to get the loot. I'm going to win this to get the money. Here we go. Last year, the player won $4,000 in cash. The player that does the best overall throughout the year will be the circuit champion. How do you think it would change the Blood Bowl competitive environment if we started having cash prizes for Blood Bowl?
Well, I think anytime you bring in a prize of that value, literally of that value, you're gonna bring out the more uber competitive side of gamers, and y- there's that ruthless streak's gonna come out more often. Um, and the flip side of that is sometimes you're gonna not have as great an experience. Is going to need to win and crash and absolutely score every point they can because they're in it for the long haul. So you're going to get much more of a long-term competitive impact because of it.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing. And do you think that the increased prestige, because let's face it, if there was a monetary thing or a bigger press thing, or the pomp and circumstance of it became greater, um, there would be more players. I think that's a pretty reasonable narrative to say. The bigger the prize pool, the bigger the prize pool, the publicity, the kind of more interest you get in it. Look at Beachhead. It's happening at the BIC at a convention, and we've got nearly 100 players. Right? That's not a surprise. There is a correlation there. Do you think that, given the fact that most tournaments are Swiss, do you think it would balance overall to say that actually I don't know what's the best way to describe it, the tryhards or the pros, let's say the pros being mixed in with the standard competition would be a bit of a, would you think it would balance out with the bigger
I think it would
attendance?
balance because I think, I mean, you see the way the ITC is doing. It's it's sort of the points are weighted to those huge tournaments, the major and the.
Yeah,
So if you're still going to your smaller tournament that's 20, 30 players, you're not going to score as many overall points for it. You're still going to have that small tournament, bit of fun feel.
yeah,
And yeah, as you said, if you don't do outstandingly in game one and two, then there's pretty little chance you're going to be up against an uber competitive pro in the third round. You're
yeah.
definitely into stunty snotling fun.
And this is something that has been overwhelmingly brilliant about every Blood Bowl tournament I've gone to or run. Is, yeah, sure, there's maybe, I don't know, 4 in every 100 Blood Bowl coaches are there to win a game. Like, they're there to win. Uh, that's it's an amazing percentage. And you know what? You can still have fun. And because of the way the prize structures are, and because of the way that there are spot prizes, um, which reminds me, I need to order the table dividers, the coloured table dividers. I'll do that in a minute. Yes, mustn't forget that, because that's how we're doing spot prizes. There'll be coloured zones. That it will be one spot prize per coloured zone. But yeah, but you can still like, oh, I'm having a garbage time. But actually, right, if the first person who gets sent off for fouling is a prize, let's go foul. I'm going to go for casualties. I'm going to go for fouls. I'm going to go for stunty. And you see a lot of that, and you tend to have people go to Blood Bowl tournaments to kind of go for a minor win or go to learn a team or go to, like, I always bring up Gary. Like, Gary is just an absolute flipping
Yeah.
legend. He came to Bonvember. I was like, what roster are you running? He's like, I have come here with the goal of, in my 3 games, to use scroll to throw the ball deep to catch it. So he took a couple of goals with catch and he nearly pulled it off. And like, that was his goal for the tournament, was like, yeah, this is what I'm going to do today. I was just awesome. Like,
He nearly turned a completely uncompetitive meta into the thing that we all wanted to happen for the day.
yeah, it's so great. Like, that's the great thing about Blood Bowl. And I'm going to be honest with you, man. I am in two minds. The Magic the Gathering player in me, the one who loves the excitement of a competitive an esports event thinks, oh wow, like this is amazing. If we could get, T Sports Blood Bowl, I'd love to see that. But then actually the Blood Bowl player in me, who loves going to tournaments and just playing a great game with great people all the time, doesn't want that to change. And it's a really interesting mix. I think we should move into so that was the positives, and I feel like we're taking a bit of a climb down into the potential grimdark. Blood Bowl tournaments, the percentage of third party teams, printed teams, conversions is pretty chunky. Like really quite big. I would say it's almost 50 split, between, and it's not, and this is a really interesting one, is because the Games Workshop teams are really affordable as far as the game goes, but you don't, you buy the orc team, then you find a really cool one that you want to 3D print because it's a cool different team and I want to take that to my tournament. Do you think, or is it feasible that we'll see the Games Workshop restriction on models creep into the ITC kind of events? And do you think that would be, how massive do you think that would be for Blood Bowl?
Well, I think it would be really restrictive for Blood Bowl, as we've said. You said there, the number of people who will have a third party something in there, you're going to cut a lot of people out. Whether they would do it for all of the tournaments, because they're more partnering with the tournament organisers rather than setting the rules. You don't know now, but it's probably a little bit of a wait and see for how it goes over this year. But you could definitely see it happening. Standardization, and the GWA is the GWA.
Yeah, and that would be potentially my biggest concern. We could see this get more prize support, we could see this get more prestige, but we could also see it become cleansed a little bit. And I get it. Like, if Games Workshop are going to sponsor these events, to the point where they are going to want coverage in one way or another, whether it's pictures of the battles going on, pictures of the top winning rosters and things like this, you kind of have to put a restriction in place, because otherwise they're sponsoring an event that they will get nothing out of. Because if everyone that, so same Games Workshop sponsored a Blood Bowl event and 2/3 of the teams were flipping Punga, Grebo and printed stuff, that really adds very little value to them. It's great to have a Blood Bowl tournament, but they like the coverage angle, they like being able to show pictures of top rosters and stuff, because it's part of the excitement of the game. It's like, hey, buy this roster, buy this team, and because Games Workshop is really, the way Blood Bowl functions is the Games Workshop releases form the core, but then there's so much added on to the outside of it. In Blood Bowl, Games Workshop stuff is the pizza base, right? We go nuts on the toppings and the sides, but but in 40k and AOS, like, it is, the thing you can kind of spice it up with is maybe a different sauce, and that's very different. And I think, I don't know, do you think it would affect attendance?
I think it would definitely affect attendance. There would be a period of time where it would impact on attendance, because most Blood Bowl tournament players will have more than one team, and therefore they will have a GW team.
Yeah.
But half the fun of tournaments is you take your crazy third party team and you have a
build
bit of fun.
Something great to share it. Yeah.
I mean, what would Joe Solo do? He'd never go to a tournament because he wouldn't be able to take his crazy,
No.
how on earth have you built that and why that?
And that is a massive part of the modeling stuff, is finding stuff that is not suitable for Blood Bowl and running it in Blood Bowl. I absolutely love that. It's so much good fun. And that's the beautiful thing about the way Blood Bowl works. This is going to be really interesting to see. And I don't know if I would be surprised if Games Workshop and the NAF teamed up and said, hey, we're going to support your events. I mean, we're lucky because we run our events through Entoyment. We get Games Workshop support anyway, so good stuff, everybody. Like, thank you, Games Workshop, for giving us extra stuff to give away to people who will not use it. It's interesting. I'm most excited about the potential of a Blood Bowl Invitational hosted by Games Workshop. That could just mean we see some of the best Blood Bowl players play some of the best Blood Bowl. And Blood Bowl is about carnage on the pitch, right? That's why we like mixed teams. We like Dungeon Bowl, is because this is every single turn is its own unique problem to solve. That's great fun. But actually, you know what? Putting Andy Davo against somebody, you know, like just pro, it would be really interesting. And I just want to say I'm available to cover that event, because that would be so sweet.
Would you like to be there on the telecast?
Oh, it'd be amazing. I could be the Marshall Sutcliffe of Blood Bowl. That would just be like happy Ben all day long, because I'd love to see that, and that would be something that is great. And I'm really gutted that we can't do it for Beachhead, because we don't have the tech really at the event, and we don't have the timings to do it, which is a massive shame. And I want to get it going in the future, but running an event and also doing coverage, it's not something that we can do with our team. Like, you're being amazing and helping out this time, Trips, which takes us to a grand total of 3 people to run a 100-man tournament, which is going to be fine. No worries about the running of the event, but we also can't take 3 people out.
Don't have the film crew and the space and
yet.
The Wi-Fi, and
that is mostly the concern about the Wi-Fi and the electricity and everything. But my goal is to this time next year be able to maybe, if we do Beachhead next year, we might be able to, we've got a year to plan that we can, you know, bring on some people to help run the event and help with the stuff. I mean, we might be able to pay for support, which would be really amazing, and we could do a really big event and really go all out. But my dream would be to cast games for the NAF World Cup. That would just be something super special, and I really should probably do something about trying to make that happen. Whether they're interested, I don't know, but the NAF World Cup stuff starts happening in 3 days' time. The applications start going through, so
applications soon, yeah.
And then the voting starts on the 6th, so it's going to be an interesting month for Blood Bowl on the big side. But that's the NAF World Cup is so different from Games Workshop, like so separate from Games Workshop. Really is the difference between Blood Bowl and their core games. It's interesting. Anyway, Trips, I think we've covered everything on the roster for today.
Yeah, all good.
That is fantastic. Trips, thank you so much for jumping in and hanging out. Always loved chatting Blood Bowl with you.
No problem.
And guys, thank you very much for joining us and for listening. And we've talked about a load of stuff today, so please let us know what you're thinking. Are you happy about Norse? Are you happy about the Almanac? What do you think could happen when it comes to competitive Blood Bowl with Games Workshop? There's a huge amount of stuff going on, and we'll do our very best to keep in touch with you and to keep sharing the information. But for now, we should probably go to bed. So thank you very much for watching. We'll be back soon with more Blood Bowl content. Happy blocking. Thanks very much for watching. We really appreciate your support. If you want to help support the channel even further, please like and subscribe, or come join us on our Patreon. We have early access to content. We get loads of feedback from you guys, and we try and do competitions as much as we can. Or you can get yourself some Bonehead Podcast merch on our Spreadshirt site. So if you want to support a team, especially for the Bonehead Championship, you can pick up a shirt, a mug, things like that. It all helps support the channel, and we really appreciate it. Anyway, links below. Thank you very much. Happy blocking.